Senate is back in session. Secretary, call the next committee.
From the Committee on Healthcare, House Bill number 230 receives a favorable report by a vote of 10 ayes and 0 nays.
This bill has received a second reading to be placed on the calendar for next legislative day. All right, now move on to a confirmation. Secretary, call the first confirmation.
From the Committee on Confirmations, Senate Confirmation number 92, appointing Brigadier General Terry Grisham to the Alabama National Guard, promotion to the rank of Major General Army, receives a favorable report by a vote of 9 ayes and 0 nays.
Mr. President.
Senator Chambliss.
Mr. President, I've been asked to go through the process a little bit and talk about exactly where we are on the confirmations and how we got to this point. So that's going to take a little bit of time for me to do that. So as you all know, we have 23 confirmations that are scheduled for the floor, and those came through committee earlier. I'm losing track. Was that today or was that yet? That was yesterday. That was yesterday. So those come through committee. So what happens in the confirmations process is each entity, I'll call them entities, some are boards, some are commissions, different various names, securities committee, on and on and on. The National Guard, a lot of the universities, the Real Estate Commission, accountancy. I mean, you get the point. There are literally hundreds of them, and we're dealing with probably about, I think it's about 10 or 12 of them today of the different entities. So what happens is each bill that is passed, each law that is passed, where we set up one of these boards or entities, and some of them were set up back many years ago, before most of us in this body were even born. Some of them, well, except for maybe one senior member, I won't call names, but some of them were set up a long time ago, and some of them are more recent. I think the most recent one that we set up was the Midwifery Board, so that's one of the newest ones. But anyway, my point is that every one of those entities, those boards, commissions, have a different setup, a different language that allows different people to be appointed. Some may have 3 on the board, some may 5, 9, 7, 11, 13. Every one of them is different. And who appoints those members is different for each one as well. So the bulk of the appointees will be from the governor, the governor's office, and she has capable staff and appointments director that we all know and work with to find people who, number one, are qualified, but then also, number 2, are willing. Because if they're not qualified, then the whole point is to regulate or to have oversight of an entity, and you need some expertise associated with that entity. Most of them will be people that are involved in that type business or trade, but some of them actually have public members, that are consumers that actually use that particular trade or profession or industry, that sort of thing. So there's a wide variety of how these appointments are made to begin with. The Lieutenant Governor has appointees, the Pro Tem has appointees, the Speaker of the House has appointees, other constitutional officers have appointees, and they are so they go through and they vet these appointees for the very first time. They'll have different names. People suggest, people will call them and say, hey, I would like to serve on such and such board. Certainly, like me in my profession, obviously I wouldn't do it while I'm in the legislature, but in my profession, I may have an interest at some point in time of serving on the Board of Engineers and Land Surveyors. Again, that wouldn't be while I'm in the Senate, but at some point in time, those in the industry, those who are auctioneers, as I look across the way, they may have some interest in serving on one of those, the auctioneer board at some point in time. So everybody has an interest in different boards and different commissions and the regulation of the different industries, or entities rather. So once those appointments are made, those letters of appointment are sent to the Secretary of the Senate's office, Mr. Pat Harris, and those letters go to his office. And then once they put them into their system, if you will, then they come to the basket. And as you all know, we all know, the pro tem is in charge of the basket. So without the pro tem bringing them out of the basket, they sit there until he's ready for them to come out of the basket. And when he's ready, then he would bring those out of the basket. They're sent to the Confirmations Committee. Now, the Confirmations Committee is made up of senators. As you all know, the Confirmations Committee is, I think, the only function that we have that is by only one of the two bodies. I may stand corrected there, but it's the only one that I think of at this point in time, is that the Confirmations is a Senate-only function. And we have a committee that does that. I'm fortunate enough at this point in time to be chair of that committee. And it's been a real learning experience for me. And having served on Sunset Committee before, it really prepared me and helped me understand more of these bodies and entities and boards and commissions that come before us. So we have, I believe it's, I got it right here. I think maybe is it 18 of us? $16 of us. So 16 of us. There, we typically say that 9 is the quorum. Because half would be 8, and that would not be a majority. That would be 50-50. So 9 is the quorum. And we have senators from all over the state, all different backgrounds. We have backgrounds in law, backgrounds in farming, backgrounds in, obviously, me with engineering, all kinds of professions, small business owners, larger business, backgrounds in law, backgrounds in construction, law, sales, all kinds of backgrounds. And the reason that that's important is because when we have these different entities come before us, we usually have one of the 16 of us that have some connection, either direct or indirect, to that particular board or commission that we're dealing with. And that always comes in handy because there's questions about whether people ought to serve on the commission or not. That's our job, is to vet those appointees for a second time and to discuss whether they would be of good service to the state of Alabama. That is our job. That's what we're called to do. So what we do is we set the agenda based on the conferees that are in the committee, and generally we try to have anywhere around 12, 15, that sort of amount per week. More than that, it starts to get a little cumbersome. But here we are toward the end of the session, and we have 23, I think was the number, 22, 23. instead of the 15, which is not too bad. So once we go to the committee, back up one step, I try to send out the agenda
Senator Chambliss,
to,
real quick, you care if I recognize a guest?
sure, Mr.
Yeah, real quick, wanted to recognize a special guest on the floor, former Senator Roger Bedford. Want to welcome you back to the Alabama Senate, Senator Bedford. Great to have you today. Senator Chambliss.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I appreciate you pointing that out. On the Friday or so before, I send the agenda out. I send the agenda out to the committee members and to give them time to look through the resumes, look through the different entities, if they need to brush up on what that particular board or commission governs or how they're organized, they have time to do that. There's plenty of information out there via the internet that we can get that fairly easily these days. Used to be that wasn't the case. But because of some of the work of the Sunset Committee, that's something that we have really tried to push each of the boards and commissions to have a good web presence so that people not only know what they do, why they do it, what their authorization, their legal authorization to do it is, but also the finer points of who they regulate, why, that kind of thing. So that is good information that our senators, our conferees can look at to determine what it is that if this person will be suitable for the job, good for the state, or not. And that's our sole job, is to make that decision, that recommendation rather, to the full body. So beyond that, it operates much like a regular committee meeting. And we come in and we have an agenda. Here's our agenda from yesterday. It has all the different conferees or appointees on there. And we go through them when we talk about them. Now, since COVID, we've been kind of messed up a little bit in having these appointees to come into the Senate and really get to know them a little bit better. To have introductions, to have face-to-face conversations. And we've been stymied on that a little bit the last couple of years. We did open that back up somewhat this session in a limited fashion, but we weren't able to have everybody in, and that's our goal. That's where we want to get to next session, because it's very important for us to meet these people that we're asking to do the business of the state from these different boards and commissions and entities. And phone calls, okay, phone calls good, but when we can have that face-to-face conversation, it's a lot better for them. It's a lot better for us. We know a whole lot better what their personalities are, what their demeanor is, how they'll fit with the other board members of that particular board or commission, which is very important. We want an ability to work together. We want an ability to have disagreement. We want an ability to have a back and forth type dialogue on those boards and the commissions, because if they all go in and just all agree on everything all the time, well, we don't need a board. That can be done by one person. So we want those different points of view. We want those different people to be able to come and talk to us. We can ask questions. There may be specific things that are going on related to that particular entity. There may not at the time, but more often than not, we're actually seeing things that have come out of the Sunset Committee meeting. And I saw the Sunset chair walk by a minute ago, and their job is different than ours. Their job is to look at each entity, each board, each commission, and see if they are operating within the guidelines of the law that this body or this legislature has passed. So we give them specific authority to do specific things. And are they doing those things? Are they not doing some things they're supposed to be doing? Or are they going beyond what their authorization is in the law? And from my time on the Sunset Committee, I'm no longer on it, but from my time, it was actually some of all. We had some entities that might not be doing all of their duties as outlined by the legislature. We had some that had gone beyond the duties that we had outlined, but by and large, the vast majority of them were doing exactly what the legislature had asked them to do in the way that they had been asked to do it. And then from time to time, as they go through the Sunset Committee process, they are able to do kind of a self-evaluation, a survey among their board. Is there additional authority that they need? One thing that comes to mind, picking on the auctioneers again, is years and years ago, there was no such thing as internet. So there was no such thing as an internet auction. So as times change, there are differences and there are things that come up that are different that need to be addressed. So during the sunset process, they are able to identify those, make those known to the members of the Sunset Committee. And typically what will happen is one of those members of the Sunset Committee will have an interest in that and will volunteer to be the sponsor of the bill to address that issue. And the reason that that's so important and why it ties into what we're talking about in confirmations is we rely in confirmations a lot on their work and what they do in the Sunset Committee, because we're dealing with the same boards, entities, and commissions. We're just looking at them from a different viewpoint for a different purpose. So Sunset is very, very valuable, and it's really interesting because so many of the times when we get into that process, when a problem is brought, sometimes it is a consumer that brings these issues to the Sunset Committee and says, hey, I'm regulated or you regulate such and such profession, and I've had a problem with dealing with one of their licensees, or it's not gone well, or they did this or didn't do that. And we get involved in that sunset process. And once again, that a lot of times leads to legislation. So why is that important? It's so important in the confirmations process because a lot of times we know these issues over time. We know what actually is going on with that board, and we can ask specific questions.
Senator Chambliss, care if I recognize a group in the gallery?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we have a guest of everybody in the Alabama Senate. From across the state, we have some 911 directors. If you're a 911 director, if you could please stand. Thank you for what you do, and welcome to the Alabama Senate. All right. Thank you, Senator Chambliss.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking of boards and agencies and entities, we have a 911 board, state board that we have appointments to, and we'll go through if I'm not mistaken, I might see a head nod, yes or no. Does 911 go through the sunset process? I think so. Yeah, I'm getting an affirmative there. There's so many of them, I can't remember all of them, but that's a very, very valuable process for not only us as the legislature, but also for those who serve on those boards, and then ultimately the citizens of the state of Alabama. And that is just very, very important. So when we have that information, we have spillover from sunset to confirmations, we're able to really dig down into the opportunities, as I like to call them. Sometimes they're just flat out problems, but most of the time there's an opportunity for us to address what the issues are and make it better. And that's why you see a lot of times, a lot of bills that we deal with on this floor are initiated from that sunset process. And it's in an effort to make things better, to go the next step. Because several of the boards, especially the newer ones, there may be things that we didn't think about at the beginning of that process. So we come back and we have to address those. Senator, do you have some input or comments or questions?
I want to just say thank you for chairing that committee and the work that you've done. This is a lot of work, and it's critical work that you do for our state. And so I want to thank you for the time and effort. And as you've enumerated, the responsibility of coming up and having the Senate being responsible for confirming these appointments, that is a tremendous responsibility for our state.
Well, thank you, Senator. It's I appreciate your input. It's really a valuable learning tool, and I would encourage any fellow member of the Senate to be involved in the sunset process, the confirmations process, because it is so educational and helps us learn about what goes on in our state, what these various boards and entities do, why they're there, why they're important. And it's a real valuable tool.
Yeah. So COVID really impacted your ability on the conferees in particular, I would guess. COVID really impacted the opportunity to interview, meet, and get to know these conferees, I bet.
It really did. We did some online stuff, and that's better than not having any discussion, and it's better than the telephone. But nothing comes even close to that face-to-face conversation, discussion, so that we can just have that interaction. It is so important. And you know what, the Confirmations Committee, Sunset Committee is not unique to those challenges. We've had those challenges all across our state, in public sector, in the private sector, in our schools, and just every walk of life where we need to have those face-to-face contact and relationships, what was affected. And I hope and I pray that we've seen the worst of it, and we don't have any of those significant surges in the future.
Yeah, I agree. It also makes you appreciate those that are willing to serve on these boards or serve on these committees that are out there. And I'm so grateful for the work that they do. And then Sunset in particular, going back and reviewing how these organizations are working. And we sunset them for a reason, for a review, to come back to make sure that things are moving smoothly. And I've had the privilege to work with you on several of those, and it's fascinating to me. All the different tenets of these groups coming through Sunset, you get to learn what you're saying that they're involved with, and they're really in the weeds. Right. Whereas so much of what we do is appropriate and give them room to run, and they do a great job, most of our groups do. And I'm really pleased with how we serve the state through these different groups.
And that's a great point, that the work that goes into it, as we are deemed part-time legislators, I say part-time legislators with full-time hours.
Right.
It just means we're not in a single office from 8 to 5. We're all over our districts and then in Montgomery. So I wish there was a better way to describe that, but part-time with full-time hours is the best way I know. But even with that, there's no way that we can get into the weeds and build the data and the information for these reports. So we have very, very good and capable staff, both in the Legislative Services Agency, on both sides of the division of that organization or agency, and then also with the Examiner of Public Accounts, who do yeoman's work for our state. And getting into those details and providing that information to the Sunset Committee and detailed reports, they really get into the weeds in those reports. And it is an audit It does have financial information in it, but more importantly, it is an audit of whether they're following the law that we have prescribed. And there's a specific term for that, and it's not coming to my mind right now. But they're trying to see if that board, agency, or commission is, number one, doing enough based on what the law that was passed, or if they're doing too much and going beyond it. And for us as legislators to have that data, that report at our fingertips is truly invaluable. It's very helpful.
ACES, maybe what you're thinking of is they are able to examine several of the groups and make sure that what we're doing is on point, so that we're not using dollars inappropriately, but that we're making sure that the groups that we have are on point, on mission, and on target.
Well, and I'll point out a lot of times, or I'll say the majority of times, I haven't put a pen to paper to this, but a significant number of times, when they go beyond the law, it actually generally is something that needs to be done. However, we have to go through the legal process to give them that authority, even if it is something good, and we can all agree to it. That's not the point. The point is operating within the law as prescribed. So it's a very, very important process.
And I think it's interesting to me that of late, the last 2 years in particular, there have been several things that we are looking at sunsetting when we come up with a great idea, to look out 4 or 5 years from now and come back and take a look to make sure that a great idea is still a great idea and relevant and accomplishing its mission.
You know, that's another great point. With legislation, we do and have, I guess, started a more of an effort to put sunset clauses. And really, it's a time that we take to reassess, refocus. This is what the intent was when we passed this bill, or we started this board or commission. Are we hitting the mark? That's the question. Are we hitting the mark with what we did? And sometimes we do, and honestly, sometimes we don't, because it's hard to look out in the future, especially with something that's new, and keep it where it needs to be.
Yeah, and as we go through these, one of our main responsibilities are to pass the 2 budgets, and we now have those in place. So that mission's accomplished for this session, but then it's being accountable to how those dollars are spent beyond that. And this is an integral part of that entire process. And I'm thankful for what we've been able to do on cutting taxes this session from the legislature, and very proud of the work that we've been able to do together on that.
Yes, sir. That's something that's very important to me, and I think the total, if everything is finalized like we think it is, it's going to be upwards of $160 million.
Yeah.
And I know you had a big role in several of those bills, and we appreciate your work on those based on your background, but also from the time you've been here and seeing the needs and seeing how things work. And it's been really fascinating and really good work for the people of our state. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, and you know, just this time alone, the amount of debt that we've been able to repay for our citizens, some $800 million that we've been able to pay down debt for our state to make us more fiscally sound, is what a privilege to be a part of that as a state.
Well, and I think we're getting close, but maybe maybe we should have a mortgage burning whenever we have, maybe it's not a mortgage, so maybe we call it a loan burning or something to commemorate that we as a legislature, we as a state, we as the executive branch of government have worked together to do what was said we were going to do.
Yeah.
Now, neither you were here nor I were here when that commitment was made, but I felt strongly, I know you do, that we need to fulfill that commitment. And I think we're very, very close to that, if not there already. I think maybe the checks have not necessarily cleared yet, but all that's in the works. And that's something that I'm really, really proud of both trust funds. And hopefully that will be very, very soon, where we can maybe have some type of document burning or something. We'll have to come up with something.
And then also the filling up of our rainy day funds so that we're in good shape.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Senator.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. President, with that, I would move confirmation of Terry Grisham to the Brigadier General, Major General,
Using the long roll.
using the long roll.
All right. Secretary, call the long roll.
Strawbritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Butler. Mr. Chambliss.
Aye.
Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman Madison. Ms. Dunn. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hasher. Mr. Holly. Mr. Jones. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Marsh. Mr. McClendon. Mr. Milson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Reed. Mr. Roberts. Ms. Sanders Fortier. Mr. Schofield. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Wadley. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. Terry Grisham's confirmed. Secretary, call next confirmation.
From the Committee on Confirmation, Senate Confirmation number 93, appointing Colonel Eric Babbitt to the Alabama National Guard, promotion to the rank Brigadier General, Army, receives a favorable report by a vote of 9 ayes and 0 nays.
Mr. President, I move confirmation of Eric Babbitt as Brigadier General, Major General, using the previous role.
Mr. President,
Senator Smitherman,
can I be recognized?
you recognize?
All right. Senator, I just wanted to say quickly and let the body know that, these are some fine people, but I must make a statement. This is the only second time that I've seen this since I've been on confirmations. This group or committee or whatever you call it, they have zero diversity. Am I right? Zero. I ain't said 10%, 1%, 0.5%, zero. So I would hope that as the chairman, you would communicate to the appointing authorities, whoever appoint these people, all these general people, that we would appreciate if they would consider, I don't know these ranks like y'all do, whoever these folks right under the general that they consider and they promote, we would ask that they would do whatever's necessary to make sure that we can have some diversity on here. Because I last time I looked at the military, there's almost as many folk look like me, look like you, that's out there fighting, protecting this country.
Yes, sir.
Giving up their lives, and gonna probably have to, before it's over with, deal with who are these people we got over there next to Russia, Ukraine? Yeah, in that situation. So, I'm just saying that I think it would be important for them to focus on allowing some level of diversity as it relates to these positions. There's about 6 or 7 or 8 of them. And surely we can find some diversity. Thank you. That was all I had.
Well received, and I'll push that message on. Thank you, Mr. President. With that, I would renew my motion for confirmation using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbridden. Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. Eric Babbitt's confirmed. Secretary, call the next confirmation.
From the Committee on Confirmations, Senate Confirmation Number 94, appointing Colonel John Fleet to the Alabama National Guard, promotion to the rank of Brigadier General Army. Receives a favorable report by a vote of 9 ayes and 0 nays.
Senator Chambliss.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. I move confirmation of Brigadier John R. Fleet as Brigadier General, Major General, using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbridden. Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. John Fleet's confirmed. Secretary, call the next confirmation.
From the Committee on Confirmation, Senate Confirmation Number 95, appointing Colonel Andrew Conant to the Alabama National Guard, promotion to the rank of Brigadier General Army. Receives a favorable report by a vote of 9 ayes, 0 nays.
Mr. President,
Senator Chambliss.
I move confirmation of Andrew Conant as Brigadier General, Major General, using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbridden. Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. Andrew Conant's confirmed. Secretary, call the next confirmation.
From the Committee on Confirmation, Senate Confirmation Number 96, appointing Colonel Matthew Vallis to the Alabama National Guard, promotion to the rank of Brigadier General Army. Receives a favorable report by a vote of 9 ayes, 0 nays.
Mr. President,
Senator Chambliss.
I move confirmation of Matthew A. Vallis as Brigadier General, Major General, using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbridden. Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. Matthew Vallis is confirmed. Secretary, call the next confirmation.
From the Committee on Confirmation, Senate Confirmation Number 97, appointing Colonel John Holler to the Alabama National Guard, promotion to the rank of Brigadier General Army. Receives a favorable report by a vote of 9 ayes and 0 nays.
Mr. President,
Senator Chambliss.
I move confirmation of John R. Holler as Brigadier General, Major General, using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbridden. Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. John Holler's confirmed. Secretary, call the next confirmation.
From the Committee on Confirmation, Senate Confirmation Number 98, appointing Marcus Maples to the University of North Alabama Board of Trustees. Receives a favorable report by a vote of 9 ayes and 0 nays.
Mr. President,
Senator Chambliss.
move confirmation of Marcus M. Maples, University of North Alabama Board of Trustees, using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbridden. Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. Marcus Maples confirmed. Secretary, call the next confirmation.
From the Committee on Confirmation, Senate Confirmation Number 99, appointing Stephen Pierce to the University of North Alabama Board of Trustees. Receives a favorable report by a vote of 9 ayes and 0 nays.
Mr. President,
Senator Chambliss.
I move confirmation of Steve F. Pierce, University of North Alabama Board of Trustees, using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbridden. Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. Steve Pierce is confirmed. Secretary, call the next confirmation.
From the Committee on Confirmation, Senate Confirmation Number 100, appointing William Trapp, the University of North Alabama Board of Trustees. Receives a favorable report by a vote of 9 ayes and 0 nays.
Mr. President,
Senator Chambliss.
I move confirmation of William Trapp, University of North Alabama Board of Trustees, using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbridden. Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. William Trapp's confirmed. Secretary, call the next confirmation.
From the Committee on Confirmation, Senate Confirmation Number 101, appointing Randall Jones to the Jacksonville State University Board of Trustees. Receives a favorable report by a vote of 9 ayes and 0 nays.
Senator Chambliss.
Mr. President, I move confirmation of Randall Early Jones to the Jacksonville State University Board of Trustees using the previous role.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. Randall Jones is confirmed. Secretary, call next confirmation.
From the Committee on Confirmation, Senate Confirmation number 102, appointing Gregory Brown to the Jacksonville State University Board of Trustees, receives a favorable report by a vote of 9 ayes and 0 nays.
Mr. President,
Senator Chambliss.
I move confirmation of Gregory Brown to the Jacksonville State University Board of Trustees using the previous role.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. Gregory Brown's confirmed. Secretary, call next confirmation.
From the Committee on Confirmation, Senate Confirmation number 103, appointing Tony Ingram to the Jacksonville State University Board of Trustees, receives a favorable report by a vote of 9 ayes and 0 nays.
Mr. President,
Senator Chambliss.
I move confirmation of Troy Ingram to the Jacksonville State University Board of Trustees using the previous role.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. Troy Ingram's confirmed. And this concludes confirmations. All right, Secretary, call next committee.
From the Judiciary Committee, House Bill 337 receives a favorable report by a vote of 7 ayes, 0 nays, and 1 abstention. From the Judiciary Committee, House Bill 284 receives a favorable report by a vote of 8 ayes and 0 nays. From the Judiciary Committee, House Bill number 143 receives a favorable report by a vote of 5 ayes and 2 nays. Just one? From the Judiciary Committee, House Bill number 143 receives a favorable report by a vote of 6 ayes and 2 nays. From the Judiciary Committee, House Bill 383 receives a favorable report by a vote of 7 ayes and 1 nay. From the Judiciary Committee, House Bill 434 receives a favorable report by a vote of 8 ayes and 0 nays. From the Judiciary Committee, House Bill 332 receives a favorable report by a vote of 6 ayes and 2 nays.
These bills received a second reading to be placed on the calendar for the next legislative day. This concludes committee reports. Now move on to motions or resolutions.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
I have some resolutions from Rules Committee.
All right, Secretary Reed, receive the resolutions from Rules Committee, please.
From the Committee on Rules, House Joint Resolution number 161 by Representative Marcus commending the Enterprise High School boys basketball team. Also, House Joint Resolution number 171 recognizing the 100th anniversary of the Junior League of Birmingham. Also, House Joint Resolution number 174 by Representative Jackson commending Mary Elma Moore. Also, House Joint Resolution 179 by Representative Ball honoring the Hungarian delegation of the Open World Program 2022. Also, House Joint Resolution number 187 by Representative Haynes commending the section high school cheerleaders. Also, House Joint Resolution number 188 by Representative Gaston commending the Legislative Service Agency law clerks. Also, House Joint Resolution 190 by Representative Carnes mourning the death of Representative David W. Wheeler. Also, House Joint Resolution 211 by Representative Collins commending Kathy W. Gassenheimer. Also, House Joint Resolution number 245 by Representative Warren mourning the death of Robert Michael Berry. Also, House Joint Resolution number 217 by Representative McCutcheon commending the Walking Horse Association of Alabama. And also, House Joint Resolution 236 by Representative Lovern recognizing Auburn University received favorable reports.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
move adoption of the resolutions from rules.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution's adopted.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
have a resolution.
All right, Secretary Reed and receive the resolution.
From the Committee on Rules, House Joint Resolution number 10, naming a portion of Interstate 65, the Officer Richard H. Buckner Memorial Highway, receives a favorable report.
Mr. President, move adoption of the resolution.
All right, Senator Wagner. Do you want to talk on this? All right, you're recognized.
You know, Senator, what part of 65 are we talking about? You remember I had that conversation with you about something? You know, not see, they don't know, but you and I had one, and so you see why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Don't you? Okay.
Would you read the resolution?
Yeah, Secretary, if you could read the resolution, please.
House Joint Resolution number 10, naming a portion of Interstate 65, the Officer Richard Buckner Memorial Highway. Whereas in honor of Police Officer Richard H. Buckner, who was killed in the line of duty, it is appropriate to name a portion of Interstate 65, the Officer Richard H. Buckner Memorial Highway. And whereas a police officer with the Clanton Police Department, Officer Buckner was responding to an emergency dispatch to provide backup support to his fellow police officers when an accident occurred, and Officer Buckner was forced off the roadway. His quick action to avoid a head-on collision likely saved the lives of innocent citizens. And whereas highly respected by his fellow officers and in the community, Officer Buckner was always conscientious to protect and serve, and was en route doing just that when his life was sacrificed. Whereas while no action on our part can make amends to his family and friends for their loss, this special designation may ensure that he is remembered with utmost gratitude by Alabamians. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the legislature, both houses thereof concurring, that in honor and memory of Police Officer Richard Buckner, we declare the portion of Interstate 65 from exit 205 to exit 208 in Clanton, Alabama, be named the Officer Richard Buckner
President.
Memorial Highway.
Mr. President,
Senator Smithman.
I think you have to, he has to do, you can request to stop the reading. You have to do it because you asked for
Mr.
it.
President, I move we stop and
All right, Secretary, stop the reading, please. All right, now we have a motion for adoption.
adopt the resolution.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution's adopted.
Mr. President.
Senator Wagner.
The resolution.
All right, Secretary Reed and receive the resolution.
From the Committee on Rules, House Joint Resolution number 48, extending the date for reporting and dissolution of the Study Commission on the 9-8-8 Comprehensive Behavioral Health Crisis Communication System, receives a favorable report.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
move adoption of the resolution.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution's adopted. The resolution got adopted.
Move adoption of the resolution.
All right, and you have another resolution?
Yes.
All right, Secretary Reed and receive the resolution.
From the Committee on Rules, House Joint Resolution number 64, supporting the importance of financial education in the state of Alabama, receives a favorable report.
All right,
Mr. President, move adoption of the resolution.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The resolution's adopted.
Mr. President, I have a resolution.
All right, Secretary Reed and receive the resolution.
From the Committee on Rules, House Joint Resolution number 115, creating the Alabama Workforce and Wage Gap Task Force, receives a favorable report.
Mr. President, move adoption of the resolution.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Resolution's
I
adopted.
have a resolution.
All right, Secretary Reed and receive the resolution.
From the Committee on Rules, House Joint Resolution number 162, reauthorizing the Alabama Alzheimer's Disease Task Force, receives a favorable report.
Mr. President, move adoption of the resolution.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution's adopted. All right. Secretary, read and receive the resolution.
All the members for me.
From the Committee on Rules, Senate Joint Resolution number 90, establishing the Alabama Occupational Tax Interim Study Commission, receives a favorable report.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
move adoption of the resolution.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution's adopted.
Mr. President, I have a resolution.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the resolution.
No, it's not rules. I want to, with that resolution, I'd ask without objection, all members be added as a co-sponsor.
All right, any objection? All right, hearing none, so ordered. All right, any other motions or resolutions?
Mr. President,
Senator Beasley.
I have a Senate joint resolution I'd like to introduce.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the resolution, please.
Mr. President, this Senate joint
Hold on,
resolution.
Senator Beasley, hold on 1 second. I need to get the clerk to read in the resolution, please. Yeah.
Senate Joint Resolution number 108 by Senator Beasley, naming a portion of Highway 82 in Bullock County in honor of Chief Master Sergeant Joe Harold Adams.
I'd like the unanimous consent to pass Senate joint resolution to name a road portion of the road on Highway 82 in Bullock County for Chief Master Sergeant Joe Harold Adams.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Resolution's adopted.
Mr. President, I'd like to add all members of the Senate to the resolution.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Beasley. Any other motions or resolutions? All right, Senator Wagner. Bills. Yeah, next move on to local bills.
On page 495 of the calendar, or on page 63 of the calendar, House Bill number 495 by Representative Smith relating to the city of Thorsby in Chilton County.
Mr. President,
Senator Chambliss.
I move final passage. I don't have the HB 495 using the previous roll.
All right, final passage, 495 using previous roll. Is that correct, Senator Chambliss?
Yes, sir.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams,
33 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 495 passes. Secretary, call next local bill.
on page 64 of the calendar, House Bill 500 by Representative Witt and others relating to Madison County.
Mr. President,
Senator Chambliss.
move final passage of HB 500 using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams,
33 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 500 passes. Secretary, call next local bill.
on page 64 of the calendar, House Bill number 483 by Representatives Witt and others relating to Madison County.
Mr. President, I move final passage using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams. Same guy? Same guy?
32 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention. House Bill 483 passes. Secretary, call next local bill.
On page 64 of the calendar, House Bill 242 by Representative Hurst relating to Talladega County.
Mr. President, I move final passage using previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
We just did 483. Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 242 passes. Secretary, call next local bill.
On page 64 of the calendar, House Bill number 480 by Representative Chestnut, a proposed constitutional amendment relating to Dallas County.
Mr. President,
Senator Chambliss.
move final passage using previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 480 passes. Secretary, call next local bill. Senator Chambliss. Senator, do you want to do the certification resolution on this one?
Yes, sir. I would move certification for House Bill 480 using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. The certification resolution is adopted. Secretary, call next local bill.
On page 64 of the calendar, House Bill 476 by Representative Estes relating to Marion County.
Mr. President, I move final passage using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 476 passes. Secretary, call next local bill.
On page 65 of the calendar, House Bill 523 by Representatives Kitchens and Rich relating to Marshall County.
Mr. President, I move final passage using previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 523 passes. Secretary, call next local bill.
On page 65 of the calendar, House Bill 524 by Representative Kitchens relating to Marshall County.
Mr. President, I move final passage using previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 524 passes. Secretary, call next local bill.
On page 65 of the calendar, House Bill number 508 by Representative Warren relating to Macon County.
Mr. President, I move final passage using previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention. All right, and this concludes local bills.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
have a report from the Committee on Rules.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the report from the Committee on Rules, please.
From the Committee on Rules, Senate Resolution 109, Special Order Calendar. Be it resolved by the Senate that the following bills, the order name shall be the special, paramount, and continuing order of business taking precedence over all other matters until disposed of for the 28th legislative day only. On page 57 of the calendar, House Bill 458 by Representative Sorrells relating to economic development. On page 59, House Bill 176 by Representative South relating to alcoholic beverages. On page 39, House Bill 26 by Representative Wood, R, relating to the Judicial Retirement Fund. On page 61, House Bill 446 by Representative Standridge, relating to 911 telephone calls. On page 14, House Bill 95 by Representative Gray, relating to court-imposed fines. On page 54, House Bill 419 by Representative Ledbetter, relating to construction of certain property. On page 25, House Bill 232 by Representative Bedsole, relating to the Controlled Substance Database. On page 42, House Bill 54 by Representative Hill, relating to alimony. On page 24, House Bill 199 by Representative Hall, relating to the Governor's Office of Minority Affairs. On page 42, House Bill 104 by Representative Gaston relating to pardons and paroles. On page 14, House Bill number 52 by Representative Hill relating to criminal procedure. On page 49, House Bill 144 by Representative Jones S. relating to elections. On page 52, House Bill 414 by Representative Oliver relating to boards and commissions. On page 57, House Bill 304 by Representative Baker relating to solid waste management. On page 25, House Bill 346 by Representative Ellis relating to employee retirement system. On page 51, House Bill 352 by Representative Meadows relating to the State Employees Retirees Trust Fund Funding Act. On page 39, House Bill 400 by Representative Kitchens relating to taxation. On page 43, House Bill 415 by Representative Isbell relating to counties. On page 55, House Bill 347 by Representative Moore P. relating to community development districts. On page 50, House Bill 308 by Representative Ingram relating to the employee retirement system. On page 16, House Bill 37 by Representative Meadows relating to motor vehicles.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
move the Senate adopt the report from the Committee on Rules
All right, would you like to use previous roll?
using previous role.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
All right, 33 ayes, 0 nays. The special order calendar is adopted. Before we call the first bill, real quick, I want to recognize a special guest in the gallery, Mr. Jimmy Hardy, the chairman of the Chilton County Commission, guest of Senator Weaver and Senator Chambliss. Mr. Hardy, if you could please stand. Welcome to the Alabama Senate. All right, Secretary, call the first bill in the special order calendar, please.
On page 57 of the calendar, House Bill 458 by Representative Sorrells, a proposed constitutional amendment relating to economic development. Committee amendment pending.
Mr. President,
Senator
I
Livingston.
move we adopt the committee amendment using previous role.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. The committee amendment's adopted. Senator Livingston.
Mr. President, this is the same bill we passed out of the Senate. This is a House version that's coming up, has to do with the 772 amendments and allowing cities to lose local amendments in addition to. And if there's no questions, I would move for final passage using previous role.
All right, any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 458 passes amended. Thanks, Senator Livingston. Secretary, call next bill on the calendar, please.
On page 59 of the calendar, House Bill 176 by Representative South relating to alcoholic beverages.
Senator Sessions.
Thank you, Mr. President. Basically, this is a workforce issue, and we're dropping the age by 1 year that a person can serve alcohol, not bartend, not dispense, but just be a busser and carry it to the table. With that, I'd move for passage.
Let's use previous roll.
Use the previous role.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 1 nay. House Bill 176 passes. Also like to give a warm welcome to Representative South. Good to have you in the Alabama Senate. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 39 of the calendar, House Bill number 26 by Representative Wood R. relating to the Judicial Retirement Fund.
Mr. President,
Senator Marsh.
I move final passage of the previous roll without objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 26 passes. Thanks, Senator Marsh. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 61 of the calendar, House Bill number 446 by Representative Standridge relating to 911 telephone calls.
Mr. President,
Senator Orr.
move third reading using the previous role.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
33 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 446 passes. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 14 of the calendar, House Bill number 95 by Representative Gray relating to court-imposed fines, committee amendment pending.
Mr. President?
Yeah, Senator, you're recognized.
Yes. I move for adoption.
All right, would you like to, we're on the committee amendment adopted. Would you like to use previous roll?
Yes, please.
All right, any objection? You want the long roll? All right, Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Butler. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman Madison. Ms. Dunn. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Holly. Mr. Jones. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Marsh. Mr. McClendon. Mr. Melson. What are you saying, man? Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Reed. Mr. Roberts. Ms. Sanders Fortier. Mr. Schofield. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Wally. Mr. Williams.
Twenty-three ayes, 8 nays. The committee amendment's adopted. All right, Senator Hatcher, we're on the,
Mr. President,
Senator Singleton.
move for third reading,
Well, I think we have one more amendment to adopt.
Move to adopt the committee amendment number 2.
All right, you want to use
Please roll without objection.
long roll? Okay,
They want long roll?
yeah. All
Okay.
right, Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Butler. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman Madison. Ms. Dunn. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Holly. Mr. Jones. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Marsh. Mr. McClendon. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Reed. Mr. Roberts. Ms. Sanders Fortier. Mr. Schofield. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Watley. Mr. Williams.
28 ayes, 1 nay. The committee amendment number 2 is adopted. Senator Singleton.
Mr. President, I move for third reading, be dispensed with, use of previous rule without objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
28 ayes, 1 nay. House Bill 95 passes. Thanks, Senator Singleton.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, body.
Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 54 of the calendar, House Bill 419 by Representative Ledbetter relating to construction. Committee amendment pending.
Mr. President, move for BR, use of previous rule without objection. No BR, okay.
Committee amendment.
Committee amendment, move for adoption, committee amendment, use of previous role, unless
right.
people want to be on a good roll. Okay, got you covered.
Good.
Without-
All right, any objection using previous roll? Hearing none, so ordered.
Back in here.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
BR gone, the budget's already gone at power.
28 ayes, 1 nay. The committee amendment's adopted.
Mr. President,
Senator Chastain.
we have a couple of amendments that I'd like to for the sponsor to speak on.
Mr. President, I have an
Senator Chambliss.
amendment.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the amendment, please.
Amendment to House Bill number 419 as engrossed by Senator Chambliss. On page 11, lines 23 and 24, delete the physical work has commenced and insert in lieu thereof the following: a contract has been awarded.
Mr. President, Senator, this is an amendment just to clarify specifically with a action by the board whether you're a fault on this side of the line or that side of the line. I think it just really clarifies, and I think it's a friendly amendment.
Right. It is a friendly amendment, and I support the amendment, and I appreciate you bringing it. I think it does add some clarity into this based on the bill we had last year versus the new bill going forward. So
Thank you, sir. I move passage of the amendment using previous role.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
29 ayes, 0 nays. The Senator Chambliss amendment's adopted.
Mr. President.
Senator Gutcher.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a floor amendment that I'd like to submit at this time.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the amendment.
Amendment to House Bill 419 as engrossed by Senator Gudger. On page 4, line 6, delete $500,000 and insert in lieu thereof the following $750,000. On page 5, lines 22 and 23, strike $500,000 and insert in lieu thereof the following $750,000.
All right, Senator Gudger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think last year when we did this bill, obviously we worked on that together, but at the same point, inflation has gone up on building materials. If you bought a 2x4 last year, say it was $9, now it's gone up at least 42%. If you added the math, approximately you're back at $750,000 for the same projects we did last year for that same amount. It now costs $750,000. So that's the reason for the amendment. I feel like it's a friendly amendment. I'd love to get your favorable report on that also, but I'd like for it to go forward if that's okay with you, Senator.
Mr. President. Mr. President.
Senator Chastain.
Senator, you and I have talked about this, and we had kept the cap at $500,000 last year. But you make some valid points. I've talked to several members, and they have a strong interest in us moving that cap to $752,000. So, Mr. President, at this time, I move to adopt this amendment using previous roll. Move to adopt the amendment using previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
33 ayes.
29 ayes, 0 nays. The Senator Gudger amendment's adopted. All right, Senator Chastain.
Move for final passage.
All right.
Previous roll.
Any objection? Hearing none. Did you object? All right. All right. Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Butler. Mr. Chambliss,
Got you, man.
Mr. Chastain,
Aye.
Ms. Coleman Madison, Ms. Dunn, Mr. Elliott, Ms. Figures, Mr. Gavan, Mr. Gudger, Mr. Hatcher, Mr. Holly, Mr. Jones, Mr. Livingston, Mr. Marsh, Mr. McClendon, Mr. Milson, Mr. Orr, Mr. Price, Mr. Reed, Mr. Roberts, Ms. Sanders Fortier, Mr. Schofield, Mr. Sessions, Mr. Shelnut, Mr. Singleton, Mr. Smitherman, Mr. Stutz, Mr. Wagner, Ms. Weaver, Mr. Watley, Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 2 nays. House Bill 419 passes amended.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Chastain. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 25 of the calendar, House Bill 232 by Representative Bedsole relating to the Controlled Substance Database.
Senator Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. President. HB 232 will allow a coroner, a deputy coroner, a licensed medical examiner, or the examiner's designee who is employed by the Department of Forensic Sciences access to the PDMP, but only limited to information concerning an investigation about the cause and manner of death. And with that, I'd like to move final passage using previous rule without objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, no nays.
32 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 232 passes. Thank you, Senator Weaver. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 42 of the calendar, House Bill number 54 by Representative Hill relating to alimony.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 54 is a bill that was passed out of the judiciary. It amends the statute wherein alimony is ceased. I see my friend across the way if he has some questions.
No, you go right on. He'll let ask you or me to handle it, and I didn't see you up at the mic. So you go right on. I'll just support what you're doing.
With that being said, Mr. President, I ask for final passage using previous rule.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Stop.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
All right, 32 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 54 passes. Thank you, Senator Barfoot. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 24 of the calendar, House Bill number 199 by Representative Hall relating to the Governor's Office of Minority Affairs.
Senator Singleton, or Senator Smitherman.
Thank you.
I didn't know which one.
This is the companion bill that y'all passed with our sponsored up here for the Minority Affairs Department. Make a long story short to everybody, it just allows them to run their department just like the other people. They hire their people, they can give them step raises, or they can do whatever they need to do. And it wasn't set out as these procedures clear enough in the initial establishment of it that this was necessary. So it's everybody, we was asked to do this to bring it up to the level of the departments. And that's basically what this does.
All right. Would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I forgot one. With no objection, I'm asking now consent. No, I don't know about the previous roll pretty good.
Yeah, it is.
Use the previous roll.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 199 passes. Thank you, Senator Smitherman.
Thank you, and thank you, members.
All right, Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 42 of the calendar, House Bill 104 by Representative Gaston relating to pardons and paroles.
Senator Singleton.
President, move for third reading, be dispensed with use of previous rule without objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams,
32 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 104 passes. Thanks, Senator Singleton. Secretary, call the next bill.
on page 14 of the calendar, House Bill number 52 by Representative Hill relating to criminal procedure.
Mr.
Senator
President,
Singleton.
move for third reading, be dispensed with use of previous rule without objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams,
32 ayes, no nays.
32 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 52 passes. Secretary, call the next bill.
on page 49 of the calendar, House Bill 144 by Representative Jones, S., relating to elections.
Mr. President,
Senator Singleton.
I don't know if Senator Jones is in here or not, but when I read, I'm sorry, Representative Jones, elections eliminating requirements for runoff elections where only 2 candidates run in municipal elections and there's a tie, providing that the judge or of probate rather than sheriff to decide where there is the tie vote in the election for the county or precinct office. You gonna handle this? I'll allow you to handle it because I don't sound like something I won't.
All right, Senator Figures.
Yes, thank you. We got to this bill very quickly. Well, it's just a bill that establishes the guidelines in how you handle like a double runoff sometime. So with that, Mr. President, I move for final passage of HB 144 using previous roll without objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams,
32 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 144 passes.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Figures.
Members of the Senate.
Secretary, call the next bill.
on page 52 of the calendar, House Bill 414 by Representative Oliver relating to boards and commissions. Committee amendment pending.
Mr. President,
Senator Singleton.
move for adoption of the committee amendment. Use of previous roll without objection.
All right, any objection
Object.
to the committee amendment?
Yeah, we got to do something different. Excuse me, sir.
All right. You want to
What I'd like to do, Mr. President, is to table the committee amendment because we have an amendment we would like to offer that the language in the committee amendment will be in this in that,
All right.
in that amendment.
We have a motion to table the committee amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? The committee amendment's tabled. All right, Senator Price.
This time, Mr. President, I'd like to offer an amendment.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the amendment.
Just that, right, yeah. Do I? Let's see what we got. President,
That's the
Senator
fit.
Price.
what I need to do is get this so can we reprint this?
Mr. President, we'd like to call this over to call the chair.
Any objection?
Carried over.
Hearing none, so ordered. All right, House Bill 414 is carried over to call the chair. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 57 of the calendar, House Bill 304 by Representative Baker relating to solid waste management.
Mr. President,
Senator Albritton.
move for final passage, HB 304, using previous roll without objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams,
32 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 304 passes. Thanks, Senator Albritton. Secretary, call the next bill.
on page 25 of the calendar, House Bill 346 by Representative Ellis relating to the employees' retirement system.
Mr. President,
Senator Singleton.
move for third reading, dispense with use of previous rule without objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams,
32 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 346 passes.
Mr. President,
Senator Reed.
Mr. President, we've got some House messages that I'd like to take at this time. I just mentioned to the minority leader.
All right, Secretary, call the first House message.
Message from the House, Mr. President. The House of Representatives has concurred in and adopted the report of the Committee on Conference on the disagreement of the two houses on the Senate amendment to the bill. House Bill number 138 to make supplemental appropriations from the Education Trust Fund, and said conference report being in words and said figures as follows to wit. We, the Committee on Conferees appointed to reconcile the difference between the two houses concerning House Bill 138 have met, considered the matter, and agreed to the attached conference committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representatives Scott, Lovern, and Garrett, conferees on the part of the House. Senators Orr, Marsh, and Smitherman, conferees on the part of the Senate.
Mr. President,
Senator Orr.
we can move through the four changes, or we can just go ahead and move to concur with the conference committee report. So, okay, I've been asked to explain. So there are four changes. One was we plussed up ANGAP. That's the National Guard Scholarship Program. There's a funding shortage for summer school to get them through the rest of the fiscal year. So we plussed that up 800 plus thousand. We had a change for the ALETS program, that's cybersecurity for the schools through the Supercomputer Authority for 400 plus. We had a change to the Jacksonville State indebtedness that went from 13 to 6.5 as far as the forgiveness or the payment for that. And then we had one last change. We unearmarked some money that was earmarked for charter schools. That earmark was taken away. So those are the four changes. I'd move we concur with the, as I have said, to the conference committee report.
Would you like to use previous roll, Senator Orr?
Previous roll.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 138, the Senate concurs. Secretary, call next House message.
Report of the Conference Committee on Senate Bill 138. We, the Committee on Conferees, appointed to reconcile the difference between the two houses concerning Senate Bill 138 have met, considered the matter, and agreed to the following substitute for Senate Bill 138. Respectfully submitted.
Senator Reed.
Mr. President, thank you. I'd make a motion that we concur on the conference report on Senate Bill 138.
Would you like to use previous roll?
Please.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The Senate concurs on Senate Bill 138. Secretary, call next House message.
Message from the House, Mr. President. The House of Representatives has amended as therein shown and is amended has passed the following Senate bill. It returns same herewith to the Senate. Senate Bill 274 relating to the sales tax. Signed, Jeff Porter Clerk.
Mr. President,
Senator Livingston.
I move we concur with the House by using previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Thank you.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The Senate concurs on Senate Bill 274. Secretary, call next House message.
Message from the House, Mr. President. The House of Representatives has amended as therein shown and is amended has passed the following Senate bill and returns same herewith to the Senate. Senate Bill number 224 relating to unemployment compensation. Signed, Jeff Porter Clerk.
Mr. President.
Senator Reed.
Make a motion we concur.
All right, using previous roll.
Please.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The Senate concurs on Senate Bill 224. I think this concludes House messages.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Coleman Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We had a call of a chair, Senate Bill 101. I'd like to call that now, please.
All right, call the chair.
Yes, sir.
All right, Secretary call Senate Bill 101, and I am not the speaker.
On page 22 of the calendar.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Senate
Chairman.
Bill number 101 by
President,
Senator
my
Coleman Madison relating to podiatry.
Thank you. Senate Bill 101 really expands the scope of podiatry and let me just show this map to all the members. This is a map of the United States, and the white areas, you have 3 states here, Alabama, Mississippi, and Massachusetts. There are 3 states that we do not have this. We brag that we train everybody, and we are the top medical facility in the Southeast here in the state of Alabama. We train them all, but unfortunately, when we train these young people to be the best, they go to another state because they are not allowed to practice what they learn. We put a glass ceiling on them. I'm so pleased that we have the University of Alabama and other training and teaching colleges here. But again, all the young people that I talk to say that when they graduate, they leave because they cannot practice. So I'm asking, and I've given this information to all of the senators. So I'm just asking for an up or down vote on this, however it goes. But I would caution everyone, we have 47 states in the District of Columbia that include the area of the ankle as far as the scope of practice for podiatry. Our laws have not been changed in 49 years, have not been changed or updated. After a while, we're going to find ourselves training everybody, but having to go to another state to get the service that we need from the people whom we train. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to call for a vote. Long
All right,
roll.
call the long roll. All right. Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen.
Gotcha.
Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Butler. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman Madison.
Aye.
Ms. Dunn. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Holly. Mr. Jones. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Marsh. Mr. McClendon. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Reed. Mr. Roberts. Ms. Sanders Fortier. Mr. Schofield. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Aye. Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Wadley. Mr. Williams.
11 ayes, 15 nays. Senate Bill 101 fails. All right. Thank you, Senator Coleman Madison.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you to the vote, people who supported it.
All right. Secretary, call the next bill on the calendar.
On page 51 of the calendar, House Bill 352 by Representative Meadows relating to the State Employee Retirees Trust Fund Funding Act.
Mr. President,
Senator Singleton.
I will move for third reading be dispensed with use of previous roll without objection.
I don't know if I'd want to use previous roll.
No, long roll, please.
Long roll. All right.
Thank you,
Secretary,
sir.
call the long roll.
Long roll. You tricked me.
Mr. Albritton.
You done out-cat the cat.
Mr. Allen.
All right. Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Butler. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chastain. Ms. Coleman Madison. Ms. Dunn. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Holly. Mr. Jones. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Marsh. Mr. McClendon. Mr. Milson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Reed. Mr. Roberts. Ms. Sanders Fortier. Mr. Schofield. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Wadley. Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 352 passes. All right, Senator Price. You want to call back up?
I'd like to call the chair HB 414.
All right, Secretary, call House Bill 414, please. Set the call of the chair.
On page 52 of the calendar, House Bill number 414 by Representative Oliver relating to boards and commissions.
All right, Senator Price.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is, we start over here. We actually tabled the committee amendment. And so what we'd like to do now is to offer an amendment. There's been several parties that have been involved in this as far as working with 911 board to make sure. So this amendment is a friendly amendment from all parties involved. So at this time, I ask for the previous roll.
Hold on a second. Have you submitted? All right, Secretary Reed received the amendment.
Yes.
Amendment to House Bill 414 as engrossed by Senator Price. On page 2, line 8, after assistance, insert the following, that the PSAP is equipped to receive. On page 12, line 6, after telecommunicators, insert the following, employed by primary PSAP receiving 911 calls. On page 12, line 9, after requirements, insert the following. On page 12, delete lines 10 and 11 in their entirety and renumber the remaining subdivisions accordingly. On page 13, line 24, after method, insert the following, or methods. On page 14, delete lines 9 through 11 and insert in lieu thereof the following. Beginning on page 14, line 21, and continuing through page 15, line 15. Delete the language in its entirety and insert in lieu thereof the following.
All right, Senator Price.
Go ahead.
No, it's on you, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. This time ask for the passage of the amendment to previous roll, please.
Any objection?
No objection. I just want to ask a question.
All right,
Yes.
you recognized?
I know you said everybody agreed with this. There was some issues with this bill. I know the county commissioners had some issues with this bill, so they're all on the board with it.
Yes, every party, what we did, Senator, was we brought everybody together last week and then yesterday to make sure that everybody was agreement from the County Commission Association, the 911 Board, the Sheriff Association, and also Forestry, to make sure that everybody was far as this amendment they could live with.
So this is about the training, right?
That is correct. Yes,
About
sir.
their training.
Yes, sir. That is
We made
correct.
consideration for rural communities who also
That is
need it.
correct.
Some of them, does this bill still speak to if a person is on a phone call on a 911, they have to stay with that person?
Yes.
Okay, and that was one of I thought that was a little gray area for me, okay? I don't know if y'all rectified it or not in your amendment, but in most little rural communities, you may not have 2 people on a night. So, or if somebody get called, if there's 3 calls, somebody may get left out if those 2 have to stay on until an officer or somebody gets there. How do we deal with that situation?
That is one thing through the training program, of course, that they're trying to do. And I understand where you're coming from. We had a situation that had happened several years ago in my district where a lady ended up in a very unfortunate situation. And it was simply because the 911 operator passed it on to another agency. And so one of the things that we discussed yesterday was additional training that could not only help as far as the 911 operator, but when they pass it on to that additional agency, where it's a sheriff department, volunteer fire department, whatever it is that's going to dispatch from there, that can make sure that the training goes to the next level. And so hopefully that will be something that we're going to have to work on next year to try to get that as far as that next level is concerned. But this is a great step in the right direction to help as far as our 911 operators to get the necessary training that they need and get them on board. This is something, excuse me, that 3 years ago we started pushing in this direction. And if you remember, I worked with Senator Hawley as far as 3 years ago to bring something that was similar to this, but we have now putting all of these agencies together, we have brought this to the next level.
All right, I hope we can get it straightened out, because it's a concern when you're in rural areas. You may not have a couple of agencies that's going to go out and respond, and then I don't want to hold somebody in harm for not staying with it or staying on that phone call because they was trying to help someone else.
Senator, I agree 100%. If you know my district, a large percentage of my district is rural, and that is something that's got to be taken care of to make sure that regardless of where you are in the state of Alabama, that you're going to get the service that you deserve and need.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Final, we got to do the.
We're on the amendment. Would you like to adopt the previous roll?
Previous roll, please.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
Ayes, 0 nays. The Senator Price amendment's adopted. All right.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, if not any objection to final passage by the previous roll, please.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 414 passes amended. Thanks, Senator Price.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 39 of the calendar, House Bill number 400 by Representative Kitchens relating to taxation.
Mr. President.
Senator Stutz.
House Bill 400 is a companion bill to Senate Bill 275, and there are not any consistent rules across the state with ad valorem taxes on several different farm structures, but this one specifically deals with grain bins and will make it consistent across the state and will eliminate additional ad valorem taxes on grain bins and their components that are placed on farms in Alabama. And I think my colleague here wants to dialogue with me. I'll be glad to yield to him.
Well, Mr. President, I think the gentleman has an amendment. I don't know if it's agreed upon, but I'm going to allow it before I make my statement, okay?
All right, Senator Beasley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had a conversation with Senator from.
All right, Secretary Reed, and receive the amendment, please.
Senator Stutz, I have a.
Hold on one second, Senator Beasley. Senator Beasley. Senator Beasley. Hold on, let me let him read the amendment in real quick, if you don't mind.
Amendment to House Bill 400 by Senator Beasley. On page 1, line 21, after taxation, insert the following: and to exempt seed containers from ad valorem taxation. On page 7, after line 19, insert the following new subdivision and renumber the remaining subdivisions accordingly.
All right, Senator Beasley.
Okay. Senator, this is a bill that I was asked to sponsor for the agriculture community to exempt seed bins. If you don't have any objection, I'd ask for a favorable report.
I think this can certainly be accepted as a friendly amendment. I understand you're trying to make the clarification. The bill does say grain stored for market. And if you're storing it for your own seed to use to plant your next crop.
That's right.
There might be some confusion there. So I would certainly accept that as a friendly amendment.
Mr. President, I move for favorable vote on the amendment.
All right, would you like to use previous roll?
Yes, sir.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton.
Thank you,
Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. The Senator Beasley amendment's adopted. All right, Senator Stutz.
Mr. President,
I'll yield to my colleague.
All right, Senator Melson.
I'd like to add an amendment.
All right, Secretary Reed, and receive the amendment.
Amendment to Senate Bill 275 by Senator Melson. Yeah.
It needs to be House Bill 400.
Senator Melson. So all right, Senator Stutz.
Yes. Can you correct it? I'll be glad to continue dialogue with my colleague if he's had some other points he wanted to discuss while we're waiting on that amendment.
Mr. President.
Senator Singleton.
The gentleman and I stood and we had a gentleman's agreement. And I said to the gentleman that while I don't like this bill, I was going to be willing to allow this bill to move forward. I had a phone call from a great friend of mine in my district who's suffering from cancer, and he's a farmer. He called me from his hospital bed. I'm willing to do this for him. Not the organization that's pushing this, but to do it for him. But then to stand here and look at all this other stuff just get piled on the bill, I'm beginning to change my mind. Because that wasn't a part of nobody's agreement. Seed bins, now irrigation. We might as well just had a whole darn farm. Just let everybody go. I'm sure you do. But I was just at that moment to saying, hey, my friend, you got it. Because I want to help you. But then we piling all this other stuff on. These same farmers, if I decide to pass a school tax tomorrow, will have big no signs on their property to stop me from educating my children to be able to bring in local dollars. based on an ad valorem tax, and now you want to be exempt from ad valorem taxes. Not only were you doing your storage bin, now you want to pile seeding on it, and now you want to pile irrigation. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to stand on the wall on this one.
Senator,
I'm gonna stand on the wall. Y'all just have to cloture me on this one. I'm just gonna have to stand on the wall on this one because
Senator, obviously neither of these amendments are mine. Let me clarify something on the seed part of it. That basically makes no difference in the bill of saying seed grain versus grain. That might be, the issue was, I think, from Senator Beasley's farmer that was concerned is that he has a bin that he has built to store grain, to carry to market, to dry it, but then maybe during a small portion of the year, he stores some seed that he's planning to use to plant his next crop in that bin, and would that make him in violation of the law? And I am happy to.
You'll throw his house in there next, right?
No. It's simply clarifying very minor technicality about.
You store inside the barn also. You store the barn in next.
It is still the same grain bin. It's still the same value. It's just clarifying part of the definition of the bill. And listen, I am very. I didn't know that this other amendment was coming, but I'm happy to decline that amendment and move on with the passage of the bill. I in no way was violating you and I's agreement, and I think Senator Beasley's amendment says it's just a very, very minor technical definition of what the bill might or might not be used for during a portion of the year, and really makes no difference in the substance of the bill.
Mr. President, may I dialogue with you just a minute?
Yeah, so Senator Singleton's got the mic. You yield?
I will yield to the gentleman.
All right, Senator Sessions.
Senator Singleton, I went over to Senator Melson. We had a short discussion, and he brought out a valid point. The corn yields in the state of Alabama for years and years and years, in your area, in my area, in every area, was 40 to 80 bushel to the acre. Today, with modern technology and irrigation, some of these farms are making 200-300 plus bushel per acre. That revenue is going into the coffers. That is being taxed as income. So really, you're not losing very, very little by giving this ad valorem. If we add this as an amendment, you're actually going to win in the long run because the production will far outweigh and speaking as a farmer that knows, I don't even plant corn on my farm anymore because I don't have enough irrigation. I can't afford to put that irrigation in on my farm just to plant corn. And without it, even in the coastal areas, corn is one of the crops that you have to have a lot of water. And if we don't get it by Mother Nature, you have to put it there. So I kind of understand Senator Melson's point there, and I just wanted to dialogue with you just a minute, and I understand your points, and it is difficult when you're trying to raise money in your communities, and I understand that on the property tax issues, on the ad valorems, but I just wanted to make those points, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you so much working with us and allowing me to dialogue with you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Senator Singleton.
I would just like to respond to the gentleman. I understand your production of your yields or your corn, but the production of my babies, the production of little children and their educational value, where outweighs the production of your corn to me. Your corn may be valuable to you because you may have a good school system behind you. All I'm saying is not even about production of corn. It's not production of soybean, any production of grain. It's about these same farmers who are asking for relief because they feel like they're hurting. Don't give me relief when I say my children are hurting. So if the farmers' federations want good workforce, so the next time that I offer a bill to support my community schools. All of you farmers, I need you to go sit with me and say to the farmers in this community that y'all need to leave this alone and allow this community to grow by giving it a better educational system. Then you can have all the yield you want of your corn. Because I don't bother your corn when you want to grow it. I voted for the irrigation bill years ago to be able to give $5,000 or more for folks. I know people were pumping out of the river in my area to irrigate. I'm not against that at all. I'm not against your seed bins. I'm not against that. I'm for my children. And these same people we're asking for, regardless to the value of it, it's a principle. But then they talk about having good workforce in the area when they want to fight me on everything. They don't go to Mountain Brook when Mountain Brook put on a tax. They don't go to Vestavia when Vestavia puts on a tax. They don't come to Huntsville when Huntsville puts on a tax. They don't go into Mobile when Mobile puts on a tax. But they will come to Hale County. They will be in Greene County. They will be in Sumter County. They will be in Marengo County, telling our school system and children that you ain't worth it. That's the message. But then you come here and ask me for you a break. Oh, we poor farmers. We catching it under COVID. We catching it over here. You're getting it both from the federal end and the state end. We can't even get it just from one end in my local community. That's all I'm saying. But at the end of the day, Senator, to my friend, because I talked to revenue, and I know it ain't a whole lot of revenue that's being taken. I already talked to revenue about the numbers based on what they saw, $24,000, $25,000 a year, right? It's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, but it could be money because out of that $24,000, $25,000, a penny or two goes to my school. A penny or two goes to my hospital. A penny or two goes to other things in the community, road, parks, and recreation for children. So when those penny or two get cut out, those are least of the services that I can provide based on those dollars. But for my friend,
I appreciate your concern, appreciate your dialogue, and like you said, in the big scheme of things, it's not a major amount of money, and I appreciate your principles and the principles you're standing on, and appreciate your dialogue. Any other questions or anything particular you want to ask about it?
No, I don't have a question, Senator. I really don't like this late surge of pile on.
I understand.
I don't like this late surge of pile on after 5.
Mr. President, I move for final passage as amended with the previous roll.
All right, hold on a second.
Long roll, please.
Hold on a minute. So I think Senator Melson, did you want to talk?
I'd like to offer my amendment.
All right. Well, you want to? Okay. Yeah. All right. Senator Melson, Secretary, read and receive the amendment.
Amendment 2, House Bill 400 by Senator Melson. On page 1, line 13, after market, insert the following: and irrigation structures and equipment. On page 1, line 21, after bins, insert the following: and irrigation structures and equipment.
Mr. President, I'd like to start my first hour on the amendment.
On page 7, after line 19, insert the following new subdivision and renumber the subsequent subdivisions accordingly. 24, all irrigation structures and equipment.
Mr. President.
Hold on 1 second. All right. All right, Senator Melson, we're on the amendment.
I'd like to move for adoption of the amendment.
Mr. President.
Okay, Senator Marsh.
I move to table that amendment.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, the amendment is tabled. All right.
Mr. President.
Hold on 1 second. Senator Holly's recognized.
I've been looking forward to this all day long. Would you mind starting my first hour?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
You're recognized,
I appreciate
Senator
it.
Holly.
I apologize for having to come over to the side like this.
Oh, you're fine.
But maybe we can turn around to a degree. I do not understand why the relationship between this bill and school taxes are related. And maybe one day they.
Oh, well, I start my hour then.
You good? Yes, sir. So if we could, I understand that we had an agreement, a understanding, let's say, about what we were going to do today. We spent plenty of time planning that, and I thought everybody had gone along well with that process. And I find out that there's a bill that removes the taxes on grain bins, and then the definition between a grain bin and a grain bin being used for storage, and as one who would use the grain for planting, I assume the corn is in the bin. Like there's a big difference between utilization.
Will you let me carry the bill, call the chair to get them something else, and then let them talk about it and come back?
If I can have an agreement. I'm just not gonna let him run over me anymore. That's gentleman over there.
We just need to carry it over to call the chair. Back to tell. Yield to me.
Mr. President.
Senator Holly.
Recognizing that I would have another hour sometime during the day if required, I'd yield the microphone to the pro tem.
Okay. Senator Reed. Thank you, Senator Holly.
Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Holly. The bill we're working on has been carried over to the call of the chair. A lot of conflict. I think folks have certain levels of.
We haven't carried that over yet. We're on that bill.
Make a motion. We carry it over to the call of the chair.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. HB 400 is carried over call of the chair.
That bill's carried over to the call of the chair, and I would encourage those that are involved in that legislation to work with each other. I think there's some agreements that need to be finalized that were already discussed. But with that, Mr. President, I'm going to change the tenor here for just a moment. I've got some very important resolutions that I'd like to offer. And you all are going to be appreciative, like it or not.
All right, Senator Reed, for us to consider a resolution, we need unanimous consent. Yes. Any objection to taking this resolution? Hearing none, so ordered. All right, Secretary Reed received the resolution.
Thank you.
Senate Joint Resolution number 110 by Senator Reed, commending Senator Priscilla Dunn on her retirement and years of service. Whereas with the conclusion of the 2019 through 2022 quadrennium of the legislature of Alabama, Senator Priscilla Dunn will end a lengthy and accomplished tenure in the state's legislative body. This body wishes to recount her accolades and experiences on this occasion of her forthcoming retirement. And whereas Senator Dunn graduated from J.S. Abrams High School in 1961 and named the first Miss Abrams Queen for both her brains and her beauty, after earning a Bachelor of Science degree in education at Alabama State University in Montgomery, Senator Dunn earned a master's degree in education from the University of Montevallo. And whereas Senator Dunn spent 29 years educating this state's youth in Bessemer City School System and has been named Teacher of the Year more times than she will humbly admit, the impact she made on each and every one of her students is reflected in the progress made by the generations she educated. And whereas Senator Dunn was first elected to the House of Representatives in 1998 and served in that chamber until her election to the Senate in 2008. While in the House of Representatives, she was named Legislator of the Year twice. And whereas while in the legislature, Senator Dunn served on the Senate County and Municipal Government Committee, the Senate Finance and Taxation General Fund Committee, the Senate Fiscal Responsibility and Economic Development Committee, the Senate Governmental Affairs Committee, and the Senate Jefferson County Local Legislation Committee. And whereas outside of the State House, Senator Dunn served her community in many-fold ways. Trustee and Sunday school teacher at the Shady Grove Baptist Church, member of the Board of Directors of the Bessemer Civic Center, president of the Humanistic Challengers Federated Club, secretary of Girls Incorporated of Central Alabama, instructor at the Jefferson County District Congress of Christian Education, founder, holder of many various officer positions, and longtime president of the Concerned Citizens of Bessemer Cutoff. Coordinator of the Jefferson County Democratic Conference, member of the Jefferson Shelby County's American Cancer Society Advisory Board, and the Democratic State Convention delegate in 2000, 2004, and 2008. And whereas Senator Dunn's proudest roles are that of a wife to the beloved husband Grover Dunn, retired high school principal and assistant tax collector, mother to daughter Karen Dunn Burks, circuit clerk of the Bessemer Division, and her husband Eric S. Burks, assistant tax collector of Jefferson County, and grandmother to grandson Grover Blake Burks, successful accountant residing in Dunwoody, Georgia, and grandson Frederick Brock Burks, talented musician at the University of Alabama, majoring in jazz studies and pre-med. And whereas as this retired teacher, church trustee, Sunday school teacher, civic leader, daughter, mother, and state legislator makes her exit from the State House, this body wishes her nothing but success in all her future endeavors, but prays that she finds time to rest and appreciate the fruits of her many labors. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the legislature of Alabama, both houses thereof concurring, that Senator Priscilla Dunn is hereby commended for her years of service to the state of Alabama and its citizens on this occasion of her retirement, and that a copy of this resolution be presented to her as a small token of our immense esteem and endless gratitude.
Mr. President.
Senator Reed.
Appropriate applause for Senator Dunn and her service to the state of Alabama. I'd like to request that all senators be added.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Move for passage of the resolution.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Resolution's adopted.
Mr. President, I have a resolution.
All right, Secretary read and receive the resolution.
Senate Joint Resolution number 111 by Senator Reed, commending Senator Malika Sanders Fortier on her retirement and years of service. Whereas at the conclusion of the 2019-2022 quadrennium of the legislature of Alabama, Senator Malika Sanders Fortier will conclude her tenure in the Alabama Senate. And whereas Senator Sanders Fortier was born in Birmingham, Alabama, and was reared in Selma, Alabama, after graduating from Spelman College with a degree in psychology and earning her Juris Doctor from the Birmingham School of Law, she returned to Selma and joined the law firm of Chestnut, Sanders, and Sanders, LLC, of which she is now the managing partner. And whereas the daughter of Hank Sanders, a state senator for 35 years, and Faya Rose Torre, a renowned civil rights activist, Senator Sanders Fortier was born into a family highly committed to community, equality, and justice. She thus views her position in public office as the culmination of a decades-long and truly centuries-long path towards social progress which has been trod by generations before her, and also views her public office as her opportunity to minister to others. And whereas indeed Senator Sanders Fortier is Alabama's first woman senator from the Black Belt, believes that her election was the completion of a journey started by Mrs. Amelia Boynton Robinson, who in addition to being Senator Sanders Fortier's mentor, once ran for elected office herself immediately after the 1965 passage of the Civil Rights Act, as featured in the movie Selma. And whereas among all these accomplishments and sacrifices, Senator Sanders Fortier is a wife to her husband and law school classmate Franklin B. Fortier, and a devoted mother to her lovely children, Ashkari, Azali, Ayira, Ayanna, Asa, and Asha. And whereas Senator Sanders Fortier's efforts to improve this world for future generations extend beyond her family, she serves with the 21st Century Youth Leadership Movement, purposed to develop young leaders to continue the legacy of the civil rights movement so that they may pick the promised fruit yet unharvested that another generation must harvest. Senator Sanders Fortier is herself a product of the movement, as she attended the group's summer camps in her youth and subsequently became its executive director. And whereas Senator Sanders Fortier lives her life by a few mottos, including Fortier's Finish, and as she tells her children is their family motto, fighting for the least of these, the motto of her law firm. And she has spent her life fighting to build what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. envisioned as the enlightened, beloved community. And whereas Senator Sanders Fortier has been recognized for her efforts in publications such as the New York Times, Essence, and as a guest on the Tom Joyner Morning Show. However, this body prays that the accolades of this resolution help convey to her the appreciation and respect her colleagues hold for her. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the legislature of Alabama, both houses thereof concurring, that Senator Malika Sanders Fortier is hereby commended for her service to the state of Alabama and its peoples, both within and without the State House, and that a copy of this resolution be presented to her as a token of our immense esteem and deep gratitude.
Ladies and gentlemen, appreciation to Senator Sanders Fortier. Mr. President, I'd make a motion that all senators be added.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
And make a motion that we pass the resolution.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution's adopted. All right,
Thank you,
Senator
Mr.
Reed.
President. I have a resolution.
All right, Secretary Reed, receive the resolution.
Senate Joint Resolution number 112, commending Senator Jimmy Holley on his retirement and years of service. Whereas at the conclusion of the 2019-2022 quadrennium of the legislature of Alabama, Senator Jimmy Holley will end a 44-year tenure as a state legislator, one of the longest tenures in a state legislature in the nation. Indeed, Senator Holley has spent over half of his life serving his fellow Alabamians as their legislator. And whereas Senator Holley was born on July 30th, 1944 in Coffee County, Alabama, and has lived there his entire life except for the years he spent in college. He received his bachelor's degree and his master's degree from East Tennessee State University in 1967 and 1973, during which period he served his nation in the United States National Guard. And whereas Senator Holley met his wife Mary during his time at East Tennessee State University, these college sweethearts have been together through Senator Holley's lengthy legislative career, and Mary is truly the greater woman behind this great man. Together, they have reared two successful sons, Jason and John, and were joyed at the additions to the family of brides Julie and Nicole. Respectively, they also have two wonderful grandsons whom they love dearly. And whereas Senator Holley's life exemplifies his professed love of country, state, the city of Elba, Mary, though perhaps not in that exact order. And whereas Senator Holley was first elected to the Alabama House of Representatives in 1974, where he served until 1994, he subsequently won election to the Senate in 1998, representing the 31st District. And whereas rather than focus on legislation that garnered public attention, much of Senator Holley's legislative career was spent laboring on the parliamentary procedures of the chambers and ensuring that the State House and its myriad of professional staff entities function properly, as well as quietly working on legislation that directly benefited his constituency. His legislative portfolio includes securing appropriations to help rebuild the town of Elba's schools after a flood and for the rebuild of Enterprise High School after the tragic tornado of 2007, as well as authorship of the legislation that established the largest legislative support staff agency in the state. Senator Holley has been a longtime fixture on the Legislative Council, including service as chair, in which role he transformed the governance of this branch and was always a champion for the staff of the legislature. Senator Holley also currently serves as chair on the Senate Governmental Affairs Committee. And whereas many figures around the State House could recount stories of Senator Hawley reading every single piece of legislation on every calendar for every session, day, and committee meeting he attended, rather than recount that plethora of stories here, let it suffice to say that his colleagues and compatriots will dearly miss Senator Hawley's irreplaceable diligence, effort, and knowledge, as will those outside the State House. However, these virtues will undoubtedly serve Senator Hawley well in his future endeavors. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the legislature of Alabama, both houses thereof concurring, that this body hereby commends Senator Jimmy Hawley for a lifetime of dedicated service to the state of Alabama and congratulates him on his well-earned retirement. This body declares him to be a legendary lawmaker of the state of Alabama and directs that a copy of this resolution be presented to him as a mere token of the immeasurable esteem in which we hold this true statesman.
Thank you, Senator Hawley. Mr. President, I'd ask that all senators be added to the resolution.
Is there any objection? So ordered.
And that I'd like to pass the resolution.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Congratulations, Senator Hawley.
I have a resolution.
Secretary, read and receive the resolution.
Senate Joint Resolution number 113 by Senator Reed, commending Senator Jim McClendon on his retirement and years of service. Whereas at the conclusion of the 2019-2022 quadrennium of the legislature of Alabama, Senator Jim McClendon of Springville, Alabama, will end his tenure in the Alabama State House. And whereas Senator McClendon attended Birmingham Southern College for his undergraduate studies and earned his doctorate from the University of Houston, he served in the Navy Medical Service Corps during the Vietnam War before teaching clinical optometry at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. And whereas Senator McClendon was first elected to represent District 50 in the Alabama House of Representatives in 2002, following his election to the Senate in 2014, Senator McClendon served on the Finance and Taxation Education Committee, the Finance and Taxation General Fund Committee, the Finances and Budget Committee, the Senate Rules Committee, the Senate Education Policy Committee, the Transportation and Energy Committee, the Education and Youth Affairs Committee, the Shelby County Local Legislation Committee, has chaired the Healthcare Committee and served as Vice Chair of the Health and Human Services Committee, and has led redistricting efforts in both houses, both the House of Representatives and of the Senate. Whereas Senator McClendon is past president of the Alabama Optometric Association, a former board member of St. Anne's Home, a residential treatment program, and a past member of the Jefferson County Planning Commission. He was a founding director of the Davis Lake Fire Department and serves the First United Methodist Church of Springville in several roles. And whereas Senator McClendon is married to the former Ellen Tate of Arab, who has supported him throughout his years of service. They live together on the family farm in St. Clair Springs and enjoy time with their daughter, Lara, and granddaughter, Natalie. And whereas when he is not fishing for votes, Senator McClendon loves to play the fisherman. He and his wife share a passion for trolling the waters of the state and beyond. These lovebird anglers spent their honeymoon in the Amazon fishing for peacock bass. We pray that this impending retirement will offer him many chances to toss a line out in the water. Whereas smart and quick-witted, seasoned and educated, and always willing to take a gamble on gaming legislation, Senator McClendon will be missed by his colleagues in both chambers for his medical and practical expertise, his calm demeanor, and his ability to give and to take a joke. Indeed, this distinguished senator optometrist would never comment on the speck in his brother's eye without first putting a plank in front of their other eye and asking them which is better, one or two. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the legislature of Alabama, both houses thereof concurring, that Senator Jim McClendon is hereby commended for his many years of service to the state of Alabama and its peoples, and that a copy of this resolution be presented to him as a token of our high esteem and great thanks.
Thank you, Senator McClendon. Mr. President, I ask that all senators be added.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
and I would move to pass the resolution.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution's adopted.
Mr. President, I have a resolution.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the resolution.
Could I do the body a favor and send that to rules?
No, sorry, Senator Marsh. Secretary, we need this one read at length.
Resolution.
Yeah.
Senate Joint Resolution number 114 by Senator Reed, commending Senator Del Marsh on his retirement and years of service. Whereas with the conclusion of the 2019-2022 quadrennium of the Legislature of Alabama, Senator Del Marsh will end an accomplished legislative career spanning over 2 decades. And whereas Senator Marsh first won election to represent the 12th Senate District in the Alabama Senate in 1998 and has been reelected to that office 5 times. In 2010, he was chosen as President Pro Tem of the Alabama Senate, an office he held until last year. When a vacancy occurred in the office of Lieutenant Governor following succession of Governor Kay Ivey to her current position in 2017, Senator Marsh presided over the Senate for 2 years. And whereas, just as anyone who knows Senator Marsh can confirm, sitting on the chair as presiding officer of the Senate was not for him. The honey badger of the State House needed to work the floor, sniff for votes, and claw his way to bill passage. He felt that the chair sometimes got in his way. As such, he stepped down from his post as President Pro Tem in order to re-enter the fray. And whereas Senator Marsh treasures his wife Ginger and is a father to 2 wonderful children, Justin, married to wife Carolyn, and Christine, married to husband Will. Senator Marsh also has 6 grandchildren whom he loves dearly. And whereas Senator Marsh's wife Ginger is a public school educator and his children are products of the public education system. As such, Senator Marsh has championed the cause of public education throughout his Senate career. One of the highlights of his legislative portfolio is the Alabama Accountability Act, to ensure proper use of education resources and to provide for more school choice in Alabama. He has continued to fight for this cause during his final days serving in the Senate chamber. Indeed, the State House's own honey badger has duly earned that maverick reputation through his perseverance and tenacity in advocating for his legislative proposals. Whereas in addition to serving ex officio on every Senate committee during his tenure as president of the Senate, Senator Marsh has lent his judgment and expertise to all of the following Senate standing committees: the Judiciary Committee, the Finance and Taxation Education Committee, the Local Legislation Committee, the Government Affairs Committee, and the Tourism Committee as chair, as well as the former Tourism and Marketing Committee, also as chair. Additionally, he has served as the Permanent Joint Legislative Advisory Committee on Economic Incentives. And whereas for all these reasons recounted within this resolution and countless more, this body will miss Senator Marsh following his departure and wishes him the best in all his future endeavors. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Legislature of Alabama, both houses thereof concurring, that Senator Del Marsh is hereby commended in the highest manner for his exemplary service to the Legislature of Alabama, the state of Alabama, and all of its citizens, and that a copy of this resolution be presented to him as a token of our endless thanks and the immense esteem in which he was regarded.
Mr. President,
Senator Reed.
I would ask that all senators be added as co-sponsors.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Move to pass the resolution, Mr. President.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution's adopted.
Let me say, on behalf of the Alabama Senate and the people of the state of Alabama, thank you to these 5 hardworking, dedicated servants of the people. God bless you. Mr. President, I would like for us to go quickly back to this calendar now that we're all feeling much better, ready to move on and finalize this product and move on to the events of the evening. So that'd be my desire. I trust it is that of the body. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you.
Mr. President,
All right, Senator Smithman,
could I be recognized?
you're recognized.
I'm gonna be brief because of what he just said.
You want a point of personal privilege?
sir.
All right,
All right.
point of personal privilege, you're
Just
recognized.
quickly, Senator Marshall, just want you to know one thing, man. We appreciate you. You know, it's been a great ride with you, serving with you, man. And the one thing I want you to know when you leave, we love you, man.
All right, Senator Stutz.
Mr. President, House Bill 400 is at the call of the chair.
All right, Secretary, call House Bill 400.
On page 39 of the calendar, House Bill number 400 by Representative Kitchens relating to taxation.
Mr. President,
Senator Stutz.
I move to remove the Beasley amendment from the bill.
Mr. Chairman,
All right,
Mr. President,
yeah, Senator Sessions.
I voted on the prevailing side of the amendment. Can we reconsider that amendment? I would like to reconsider the amendment.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we're going to reconsider the, yeah, Beasley amendment.
I would like to lay that on the table.
All right. We have a motion to lay on the table. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The Senator Beasley amendment's tabled.
I move final passage.
All right, Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Butler. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chastain. Ms. Coleman Madison. Ms. Dunn. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Holly. Mr. Jones. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Marsh. Mr. McClendon. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Reed. Mr. Roberts. Ms. Sanders Fortier.